A study by the U.S. National Bureau of Economic Research reported that 6 out of 10 Salvadorans quit using the Chivo wallet after getting the $30 Bitcoin incentive. So the report said that the median user reports no ATM withdrawals and no payments sent or received in Bitcoin in a given month. So we've been talking a lot about watching and seeing, right? How is Bitcoin being adopted in El Salvador given this new legislation? And now we're seeing that 6 out of 10 people that were surveyed, 1,800 people, 1,800 households were surveyed face to face, and 60% of them said they got their $30 worth of Bitcoin and then they quit. Adam, were you surprised to hear this?
There's two parts of this story that are interesting to me. The first part is that I was actually surprised it was so high, so high in terms of people who continued to use the application. You're talking about something, again, like El Salvador made the choice to take Bitcoin and to make it legal tender in a way that makes it easier to spend. But in reality, over the last 5 years, Bitcoin has really become a token that's really more about saving for the future. And that future is one where people think that the value will be higher. So in practice, it's actually not used very often as a means to actually conduct commerce. And so the sort of push to do that was interesting. The other part of it that was interesting, of course, is that this study came out of a U.S. government institution, and it phrased the responses, it phrased sort of the results in such a way to cast it in the most negative light possible. But actually, it's a pretty positive result. If you look at, penetration, in terms of cryptocurrency use, people holding cryptocurrency, stuff like that, it's far less than 40% in the vast majority of countries that were you to survey that. So actually, another way to have titled this same data set would have been El Salvador has greatest penetration and adoption of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, or just Bitcoin, compared to any other country in the world.
Good for the US.
But that's exactly right. It's like, this is not data coming from neutral sources. This is data that's designed to paint a narrative. And whatever data they get back, they're going to use it to try and paint the picture that they want to paint. And so it's not surprising to see that, but it's always funny to see that because, again, like the clown makeup meme always comes to mind with this stuff. These people are supposed to be experts. They're not supposed to care what the results are. They're just supposed to tell us what reality is. And increasingly, you see this sort of taking sides and picking who's supposed to be right, as opposed to just following the data, which is, again, to me, laughable. Sundali, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you on the way that the data was presented. Of course, you see the story you want to see, right? But one of the things that I thought about when I saw this number, and again, it might have been because of the way it was presented. One of the appealing things about Bitcoin is that it has nothing to do with the government or politicians. It's considered as an alternative, mostly as a better alternative, maybe. And it's considered so because of certain freedoms it promises. So to have like a politician kind of say, hey, start using this, get ready to use Bitcoin, might have turned a bit of that shine off for folks, I'm guessing. And I don't know whether now, Bitcoin is used as a tool of like rebellion almost in some ways. And I wonder if people in El Salvador are now not using Bitcoin as a way of standing up against the president. I don't know. That might be just me, but there weren't a lot of people who were super into the idea when we first kind of revealed the news and this was all happening so fast. There were some protests. So yeah, I wonder if they, took the $30 and said, yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. I'm done with Bitcoin. See you later. Jen, what do you think?
I saw Adam's hand go up and then I'll chime in.
Oh, sorry. I didn't see that.
Oh, hey, it's all good. I'll keep it quick. Bitcoin is neutrality embodied in a form of technology, right? So there was I'm going to call it a kerfluffle last year when, there were some concerns when El Salvador, and specifically El Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele, announced this, passed it with a government that his party basically had entire control over, and then sort of just jammed it into reality over the course of a couple of months. And people were like, well, but that's not the Bitcoin way. But actually, ironically, that is the Bitcoin way, because the Bitcoin way is whatever it is that you want to do with it, you can do it with it. So if you wanted to use Bitcoin in the most authoritarian way possible, right? You could do that, and that would still be the Bitcoin way, because the whole thing is that, it doesn't matter if you're a terrorist, it doesn't matter if you're, like a freedom fighter, right? And really the difference between those two things is just what perspective and what narrative are you particularly paying attention to. The whole point is that it's a system that everybody can use, and that's in sharp contrast to a system like the US dollar reserve, global reserve currency and kind of global banking system, where we've recently seen, as a result of the Ukraine war, Russia basically disintermediated from both reserves that it holds within the system, and also with its ability to actually make payments to other members of the system, not because there's any sort of technical problem with their ability to use it, but simply because it's a supposedly neutral value transfer system that's been used to exact political purposes, or to try to extract political outcomes. So that's kind of where I come back to on this, is that certainly there are right ways to use this technology, in my opinion. And those ways are, you let people make choices, you educate them, you create a level playing field, and you enforce the rules fairly. But that's not really the world that we live in today. We live in a world where everybody makes their own set of rules, and to the extent that you can use power to try and control what people think, control what people talk about, control what people can do, you're probably going to do that, dressing it up as well as you can as someone in power. So again, I think that all of these examples are great because they represent different expressions of the neutrality of Bitcoin, and they can all happen at the same time within the same system, and that's beautiful to me. So I appreciate I got a little bit philosophical there, but that's how I think about this. And so, El Salvador is doing El Salvador, and I imagine that the Central African Republic will do the Central African Republic. And when the United States eventually comes around and starts to seriously look at this, not as a form of competition, but as a neutral technology that they just need to stop fighting surreptitiously, right? And just accept this is a part of the technology and the monetary landscape moving forward, they'll do it in their own way too. And I'm in support of all of that. I did not keep it quick. Sorry, Jen. Go ahead.
You didn't. You really didn't. I'm just going to quickly add some facts to suddenly what you were saying. There was a footnote in the report that said the Salvadorans that were surveyed said that they didn't really trust the system and they didn't trust Bitcoin, but they did want that $30. Now, the Chivo wallet is a custodied wallet, and there are rules around what you could have done with that $30. You weren't allowed to just cash it out. You were supposed to spend it or send it to someone so that Bitcoin could move throughout society. And so what they did was they would send it to a friend and then have that friend go to an ATM and cash it out. And that's how the wallets kind of remained stagnant after that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I think it points again to suddenly what you were saying earlier about education, right? It's like you don't trust your government for one, and now the government is instilling this technology and is really supportive of it. And so that distrust kind of transfers onto the technology, which should be there to do good. I also wanted to add quickly before we move on to the next story, two little tidbits from the report that I thought were really interesting. It said 5% of Salvadorans paid taxes using Bitcoin and 20% of firms accept Bitcoin. And I thought those were high numbers, higher than I was expecting. So I think contrary to the report's headline, we're going to see some interesting information come out of what is happening in El Salvador that will inform how the rest of the world operates.